Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining us today for another ELCOM webinar, Best Practices for Delivering an Exceptional School Website. Really excited to have everyone here with us today. Thank you very much. My name is Josh Anstey. I'm a Customer Solutions Director at ELCOM, and I've had the privilege and opportunity for over 10 years of working closely with schools and different organizations globally to help them deliver engaging web experiences and web solutions, and work with many schools on their website delivery projects. And really excited today to be spending some time discussing some of the tips and tricks, some of the best trends, and some hopefully really practical ways in which you can improve your school's web and digital experience. For those that aren't familiar with ELCOM, just a quick introduction to who we are. ELCOM has a long history of collaborating with schools to deliver compelling website, intranet, and portal solutions that meet their evolving digital needs. ELCOM's out-of-the-box and easy-to-use digital experience platform will help you get your website and digital solutions up and running quickly and cost-effectively. With over 100 modular functionality out of the box, including online forms and workflow for enrollment, digital media and portal capabilities, you have the flexibility to add in new functionality at any time as your school's needs change or grow. So that's a quick introduction to who we are and what we do for those that aren't familiar. We have a really exciting jam-packed agenda today. So there's going to be a lot of information we're going to be covering. The first topic we'll be covering, or first area, is best practice tips for building a relevant and engaging website. We're then going to look at the key functionality that you need to be aware of to improve ROI, or return on investment, on your website and web experience for the school. And then the third is we'll be looking at a proven framework for delivering a successful website. Before we do jump into that, we do have a quick poll that we wanted to launch to get everyone's feedback and thoughts. So we've just put a poll up on the screen over there, and it'd be great if everyone could jump in and quickly answer that. And the question is, where are you in your website journey? Looking to redesign our website in the next 3 to 6 months? Looking to redesign our website in the next 6 to 12 months? Or happy with your current website and how it's performing? So everyone just jump onto your screen there and you'll see the poll. And if you could just jump in there and select which option is relevant to you and where you as a school are in your journey and in your thought process around your school and web experience. I'll give everyone another few minutes or so to quickly answer that. Maybe not a few minutes, maybe another 10, 20 seconds. All right, perfect. I'm going to close off the poll there. Fantastic. All right. So let's jump into our first topic and our first area. So those best practice tips for building a relevant, engaging website, I think, are really important. Before though, I just want to throw out a really interesting statistic, and that's 0.05 seconds. In that short amount of time, users will form an opinion about your website that determines whether they like your site or not, and whether they'll stay or leave. And so first impressions really count, and so do subsequent impressions. So that's a really important statistic to look at, especially if your website is designed to engage with your school community, being prospective parents, where you're hoping to drive enrollments. So just think about that statistic and maybe have a look at your existing website and think, in 0.05 seconds, what would someone be thinking, and would they be enrolling their child at the school, or would they be engaging, or would a staff member be looking to apply for a role, for example? So in this section, I'll delve into the best practice tips for building a relevant and engaging website. The trend is definitely heading in the direction that websites are focused on engaging with prospective parents, students, and staff, as well as alumni and corporate partners, whereas the school portal is for communicating with the existing school community, including parents, teachers, students, and staff. So when you're redesigning your website, start by holding interviews and running focus groups with prospective parents, students, and staff, and extend it to other audiences if possible, such as current students and alumni, so that you can get some information about the internal perspective of your school messaging and your school brand. And in those, you should really aim to uncover a whole range of points and information. So aim to uncover some information about your website. How well does it align with your school brand? What do people like about it? What do they dislike? What actions do they wish they could perform on the website? And how well is their own or their child's educational experience represented based on the look and feel, the user experience, as well as the content on the website? And of course, what ideas of improvements do they have? And then try gather as much information about your school from those users. So what are the key factors that convince them to choose your school? What do they believe the school's mission is? And that can obviously come out in the design and the messaging and the information. What are the strengths and advantages of the school, and what are the weaknesses and disadvantages of the school? So that you can obviously promote the strengths and advantages and obviously provide information to balance maybe some weaknesses or disadvantages. And ultimately, you're looking at return on investment, you're looking at converting users into enrollments, for example, or booking a tour. What would make them want to fill in an enrollment form on your website? Armed with this information and obviously your existing website, you should have a good idea of what information you want to include in your new website. Put your user experience first. The standard rule of thumb is that you want the visitor to find what they need within 3 quick clicks from landing on the homepage. Decide on the different use cases for visiting your website and how your audience will then navigate your website to find the information that they need or perform the task that might be required. So they might be looking at the subjects you offer or co-curricular activities you offer. They might be looking for directions and want to find a map or the best parking or transport. Or they might be trying to apply for a role because there's teaching positions available. Or they might be trying to enroll their child or book a tour of the school or a virtual tour, and we'll talk about that a bit later. So it's really important to understand what that experience is going to be. And think about a whole range of different factors from a user experience perspective. So what do you want users to do on a page? And what should their next steps be? What's that journey they're going to be taking? Look at things like sidebars, footers, navigation menus. Think about maybe simple layouts and also include white space. Don't worry about trying to put too much information on the page. It's okay to have some clear space on the page. Another thing to think about is limiting the clickable buttons on unnecessary images. And this also helps you drive the user journey and funnel users through the experience you're wanting them to have. And from a conversation, message, content perspective, use a conversational tone so that you're not talking at them and it's too formal, but rather you're talking with them and you're just really inviting them to have a conversation with you. A quick tip, a takeaway tip hopefully, what information can you make interactive to make it easier to access and obviously a lot more engaging for your audiences? So think about that as well, because that's another way to obviously think about that user experience. It's one thing to say you have well-equipped rooms and classrooms and state-of-the-art technology. It's another thing to show you have the state-of-the-art technology and that students are using it to enhance their learning. So showcase everything from your beautiful campus grounds, fields, and buildings to student life. And think about choosing full bleed images for greater impact. And though that's, for those that aren't familiar, those are images that go to the edge of the page. Think about how the same image renders differently on different devices. So if you choose a full bleed background, which is that image that fills the page to the browsers, the image may look slightly different on a mobile or a tablet device compared to a desktop. And so just have a consideration about that and then make sure you do some testing on a desktop, tablet, and a mobile. But it's really important to think about that visual experience there. Tap into your database of professional photos. So have a look at what professional photos you do have that showcase your best life that you can promote on the website. And it's a really great idea to engage the school community. So use photos that have been taken by students, parents, and staff, and that'll also help provide a bit more of an authentic look at school life. It won't maybe feel as staged. For example, you might want to embed an Instagram feed showing all photos that have been tagged with your school hashtag. And think about creating branding videos showcasing the school. It might have an interview with the principal and key staff members, students, and parents. So it's another great way to actually engage with users. And finally, think creatively. For example, you could embed that Instagram feed, like we spoke about, that's got the school hashtag. You might pull in a Twitter feed that's got the school hashtag. But try think creatively, a little bit different to help draw users to your website. Given the primary audience for your website are prospective parents, ask yourself, why would a parent choose your school? Think about why they would want to choose your school over another school. And I think it's really important to highlight your strengths, and just got a good example of a video here, which maybe the video wants to play, maybe it doesn't, it may not want to play, decided not to listen to me, so maybe that video is not going to play, although it was playing before. But there is a video there you can check out a client site about. But some things to think about around highlighting your strengths. Think about sharing stories and anecdotes. And that's going to help you build a connection with your audience and position your school as relatable and authentic. Think about sharing testimonials from parents, students, alumni, and staff. And that could be text, it could be video, it could be images with quotes, but it really makes it a lot more personal, a lot more human, and a lot more relatable. Sharing successes relating to information on the school itself, which is fantastic. So maybe you got certain marks in exams, or maybe your sports team won the competition, or whatever it might be. I think it's really important to share those. Maybe someone won the arts prize for the state, or whatever it might be. And that then flows into highlighting your student achievements, from school results to just other interesting school statistics. As with most other services, people research multiple solutions to solve their problems, and so parents or prospective students will spend time and effort deciding which school is the best fit for their child. So make sure you're top of mind by capturing their details so you can provide them with follow-up information. At a minimum, you're going to want to capture at least their email address. So think about adding a pop-up or overlay over select images requesting their email address to receive school information. It's all about what value are you providing, what information are you giving them, and what data do you want to capture so that you can continue to communicate with them, engage with them, and build a relationship and a connection. You might want to ask a parent for their child's grade of entry or their year of entry, so you can send them more personalized information. If you know they're entering a year in primary school, they might be more relevant to see primary school information, whereas if you know they're entering in high school, you might want to be sending them high school specific information. So I think it's really important to understand who the users are, and obviously the fact that they're prospective parents inquiring with you, but also what year group or part of the school their child may be entering, so they can get that relevant information. The same thing if you're engaging with prospective or potential teachers or staff for the school. It might be interesting where they just inquire and put their name down, and what subject they teach. So you can also keep them up to date with specific information there. Segmenting information you send, obviously if you have the resources and the technology and the capability to do it, is obviously really, really powerful. So you have a sign up for enrollment updates on the enrollment page. You might have another way for users to subscribe and tell you the sports they're interested in, or co-curricular activities, or they're interested in any of the school events you might be running, or shows, or whatever it is. And obviously if you deliver segmented information and personalized information to users, you're obviously going to have a higher level of engagement with those users. Delivering custom content is also really important. So for example, the principal's blog posts. So you might not just want standard generic information about the school, but make it a bit more personable and have the principal post up a blog, maybe a weekly blog, or every couple of weeks, or a couple times a term or something, so that everyone feels like they're actually engaging with the principal, their headmaster or headmistress. Booking tours online, I think, is a really interesting concept to be thinking about, especially now. Obviously, the idea of booking tours online and the idea of being able to engage with users is really, really important. And in this interesting world right now, there are going to be probably more online tours than they're going to be face-to-face tours. So I think it's really, really important to make sure that you've got forms and workflows set up to enable you to obviously book those tours online. So think about things like what details you need to capture. What are you going to be capturing if someone's going to be jumping in and booking a tour? Give parents the ability to fill in one form and maybe choose the different tours they want. So there might be a range of different tours for different parts of the school, or maybe there's tours, more academic tours and more arts and more co-curricular tours, for example. And obviously integrating the form to existing systems so that staff don't need to double handle the information. And I think that's obviously a really key one as well, because obviously you want to make life a lot easier for users, and you obviously want to make sure that they don't feel like they're double handling or triple handling an inquiry. So I think if you can integrate to other systems in some way, it's obviously going to make life a lot easier for everybody. Automated follow-up email. So if you can send a follow-up email directly after the form is submitted, and obviously a reminder prior to the visit, it's obviously a better experience for our prospective parents. It's also going to make your life a lot easier. And then, of course, a more formal follow-up email after the tour. And linking the form to a workflow is also really important. So I think there's a bit more than just capturing the data or capturing the information. I think a lot of it's also about what does the process look like? What's the journey it goes on, and what's the workflow? So, for example, if someone's booking a tour and they're saying their child is in a certain year group, or they're filling in an online enrollment form and they say their child's in a certain year group, I think it's really important to be able to funnel that to maybe the head of that year or the year coordinator, and maybe they'll put in a personal phone call and say, "Hi, how are you? Great to see you booked a tour. I just want to personally welcome you and say we're looking forward to the tour, your enrollment, whatever it might be." So having really easy point-and-click workflow is going to make that a lot easier. And here's a big tip. If the parents cannot physically visit the school because they're in a different location or due to other social distancing restrictions, they should be directed to either pre-recorded virtual tour video and or shown a school virtually by a staff member via a live demonstration at a scheduled date and time. And I think that's going to be a common trend we're going to see, where everyone's trying to reinvent the way they do tours with schools. Increasing data quality and speeding up processing time and simplifying administration by automating your online enrollment process using online forms and workflows is a really, really common trend we're seeing as well. And this obviously saves countless hours for your admissions and enrollments team, as schools need to capture several pages worth of information from parents, and then they've got to go process the online enrollments, application forms, possibly enrollment fees, the list sort of goes on. So it's really nice in the Elcom platform that out of the box you can automate this process. So a few things to think about. Think about setting up workflow automation for online enrollment approvals, as well as notifying parents to accept the offer via a digital signature, for example. You can then use workflows to direct the form to different staff members. A very similar scenario to the tours, for example. I think it's also really important to understand what supporting documentation they should provide to speed up the enrollment process, so that they don't have to keep coming back, although obviously you want to enable them to save it and come back, and obviously provide them the ability to pay online if needed for any enrollment fees or application fees. And again, similar to the booking a tour, is integrating the form to your student management system to reduce those manual input errors. So again, another really key area to be thinking about there from an online forms and workflow and online enrollment perspective. A compelling and engaging website goes a long way in reinforcing your brand and encouraging parents to choose your school over another in maybe the area or the suburb you might live in. In the same vein, an outdated website can present your brand in a poor light and dissuade parents from choosing your school. So if your website is outdated, it can lead to them believing that maybe other information you provide them could be outdated or not as modern and up to date. So your website must be reliable and relevant. And I think there's some key things to think about with easy website management. Governance is obviously a really big one. Who's responsible for managing content? Ease of use, and choosing a CMS platform like the Elcom CMS that enables non-technical users to update the website without any technical skills or requirement. Web accessibility is obviously really important as well to ensure that your site is accessible and compliant, and that also helps with regards to things like SEO. Having a content strategy is really important as well, so it's not just a set and forget, but you do actually have a strategy around creation of content and managing and maintenance of content. And that obviously leads into the website maintenance, so that it's not at a point in time, but you've got a schedule for checking content, updating it, replacing content, fixing links, updating documents they can download or information. And your website optimization, I think, is really important as well. So it's really important to monitor your website's performance via metrics such as average monthly daily visitors, bounce rates, time on site, top performing search rates, ranking keywords, for example, how many forms have been completed. So there's a whole bunch of metrics you should be managing and monitoring all the time, and that obviously helps you to optimize it further. So what's some of the key functionality that you need to be aware of to improve ROI on your website? And there's a few key areas that you should be thinking about around taxonomy, SEO, search engine optimization, and article and page properties. Taxonomy involves the idea of where you can upload content once and add tags to categorize it. The content can then be dynamically or automatically displayed around different pages around the site or relevant pages. So it's not just appearing in one specific place, but you could publish some news in the news area and also have that be displayed on the homepage as the latest news. Taxonomy also lets you improve the search experience. So you can use search results where users can actually refine them by taxonomy, and it's going to make it quicker and easier for users to find the information they need. Search engine optimization, SEO, is a massive topic, and that really needs to be optimized. So we're not going to delve into that in too much detail, but at a minimum, your website platform should offer the following: responsive design to make it mobile responsive, mobile friendly. That goes without saying, but that does affect SEO. A fast website loading time, that also affects your SEO. Your meta title and description, so the metadata around the content. Image alt tagging, which is also really important for SEO. SEO friendly URL, so it's not some random weird URL. And obviously URL redirect, so that users don't end up with dead links or broken links, and they get passed through to the new URL, especially as you're updating your platform. And the third item there is article properties. So article properties or page properties, this will really help you minimize the risk of outdated content by using the following tools. Start, expiry, and review date. So create a piece of content now, but you might not want it to go live until Monday morning, so schedule it to go live on that date. Maybe there's an expiry date, and make sure you schedule that review date so it stays fresh and new and relevant. Version control is obviously really important as well, so that users know what is the previous version. If there's an error on this version, can I roll back to a previous version as well? And automatic notifications and alerts. And so I think that's really, really important, where you might want to notify users that they're due to review some content or update some content, or you might even take it to the next level where you start to really engage with your prospective school members, prospective parents, prospective students, prospective staff, and actually build a way of engaging with them where they can actually subscribe to notifications and alerts so that they get the latest rugby scores or sports scores, they get the latest academic results or anything else. They get notified when you've opened enrollments for the next calendar year or whatever it might be. Automation is obviously another key area, and automation tools are really important to improving ROI. And these include online forms, workflows, and events management. Again, to delve into those, with online forms, you can digitize forms and save countless hours of manually capturing and inputting the data. And we spoke about that briefly before. You should really be able to use drag and drop form creator capabilities in your platform like Elcom, where non-technical users can quickly create online forms. And you should be able to create panels that can show and hide additional fields based on the information that someone submitted. So for example, let's say a child entering a certain year group, and then it displays 5 fields that are relevant to that year group, whereas if they were entering another year group, there might be 3 fields relevant to that year group. Again, this should all be easy enough for non-technical users to do this. You should also be able to capture signatures for compliance. I think that's a really, really key and important area. And obviously the ability to capture and process payments, including fees and online donations. From a workflows perspective, again, we did speak about that briefly, but in terms of that ROI, if you can enable content and forms to be submitted and trigger that workflow or the request to be viewed or reviewed by one or more people, it's going to save you a lot of time. It's going to help speed up your approvals so that when an action is required, notifications can be sent periodically. And it's also going to help create routine routing rules where you can notify people depending on different form answers. So it was this subject, it went to that head of year group. It was this campus, it went to that head of campus, for example. And also put rules in where workflows can be skipped, reassigned, and passed to another user, or moved back a step in the workflow, or terminated early based on different actions. So again, it gives you that flexibility that you do have a process, you do have a structure, but that might change depending on specific rules. And there's always that specific use case scenario that breaks the rules, and you need something that can be flexible enough to support that. And then with event management, and I think event management is a really interesting one, whether it's face-to-face events, whether it's online events, whether it's a whole range of different things that fit in that world these days, but also helping save time and administering those resources by managing maybe public events online as well as private events and having a dynamic calendar. So what events are available to the broader community, prospective parents, for example, and what's obviously available just to existing parents or existing students or existing teachers and staff. You can also then link these to online forms to help register attendees and book registrations or group meetings, for example, and process payments, which we have spoken about. And the final point under automation and event management is alerts for new registrations. Maybe there's SMS and email reminders to attendees. Again, just helping to automate that process so users don't have to manually track them one by one. And the last item around ROI I wanted to focus on over here is integration. And it's really another big way you can help generate and deliver an ROI for your website. So newsletters, communication information, and under newsletters, this can really involve a range of different items, but I think it's really important that newsletters, as they are really important to the school communication, they should be able to be styled and templated according to your school branding, as well as support things like photos and videos. So some things to think about: you can use an email marketing module as part of your content management platform, like the Elcom platform, where you can use our email marketing for that, and the data is stored inside the Elcom platform, or you can integrate to an external tool, our email marketing tool, so users can opt in and they can get use those tools. For example, something like a Marketo or a HubSpot or a Campaign Monitor. With communications, I think that's really interesting. There's a lot of things you can do, but at a minimum, you can pull in social channels or your social accounts. So pull in a feed from Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever it might be. You can also embed videos from YouTube and Vimeo on your website. And so an idea is to create a page with relevant videos, such as subject overviews from teachers or testimonials from parents. Or you might want to create a page where you can have content dynamically appear in dynamic widgets or document lists or search results. So for example, you might create some content once and you want to be able to communicate that in 2 or 3 different places on the website, because you want to make sure that the user is going to see that communication. So instead of creating that and having 3 copies, create it once and use a dynamic widget in Elcom, for example, to then display that in multiple locations around the website. And information. So, automating the vast amount of information within your school can save countless hours for your administrators. And so you can really take this further by integrating into your student management systems, maybe such as Synergetic. We've got a lot of experience integrating into a whole range of different student management systems and learning management systems. You might want to use forms and workflows to capture new student enrollments and push that into your student management system, or push that into another type of system you might be using. And you may also want to be able to then collect enrollment or application fees online and process that accordingly. So integration is a really key area that we see as a growing trend, and something we do a lot of work with schools in. And just to quickly wrap up before we do jump into the Q&A, and I can see quite a few questions coming through, so please keep sharing those questions, and we're about to jump into Q&A in a moment's time, and I will do my best to answer as many as possible. So please keep typing those questions in there. So before we do jump into the Q&A, let's look at everything we've covered, and then let's wrap this up here with a proven framework for delivering a successful website, because based on those poll results, it looks like a lot of people are looking at updating their website in the next 3 to 6 months. And I see that as a real common trend across the industry right now. Everyone is looking at making those changes and making sure they've got a much better web experience to be more competitive with enrollments, for example. So let's look at a proven framework for delivering a new successful website. And obviously, Elcom would love to partner with you and talk to you about that. So we've got a 7-stage website redesign framework to look at over here. So the first is determine goals and objectives. So start with benchmarking against your existing metrics, from average visits to number of inquiries of different forms. And this you can then use alongside your school strategies and objectives to decide your website objective or website objectives. Review, scope, and plan is the second step over there. Gather insights from your target audience. We spoke about that before. Review your existing website, including what should be kept, added, updated, or deleted or removed. I think it's a great idea to then be able to think that through, refresh that, and do that content audit. And list all requirements and then prioritize them based on your timelines, your budget, and what everyone's expecting and your commitments. And then you move into that UX and creative and the design concept stage. And that's really exciting, where you can look at then looking at the decisions around layout and colors and mock-ups and wireframes and your visuals. And think about what we discussed earlier in the webinar around navigation design, how many clicks a user should have before they get that information. So take all that information and bring that into the design concept stage. And then moving to development and implementation. And during this stage, this is where we would take your requirements and we'd apply the designs as discussed. If applicable, there'd be any additional integration or development to potentially student management systems or learning management systems, for example. And that helps ensure that we're able to deliver a project that's high in quality and in a timely manner as well. At Elcom, we do this on a staging site so that you can review and test and check the process the whole way along. And obviously, it helps to make sure that everyone's on the same page and there's no surprises. And most importantly, you can provide input throughout the process so that everyone's really got a vested interest into delivering the best web experience for you. Stage 5 is really looking at testing, quality assurance, and testing is really, really important there, and obviously optimization. So you might look at a whole range of testing around features, functionality, but also design and user testing. User acceptance testing is really important as well. So that's where you get the keys and take it for a test drive and make sure that it's performing and working the way you want. And I think it's really important that when you are doing your own testing, you have different users from that target audience who maybe you interviewed at the beginning and they're actually involved in this testing. And it's really going to help make sure that they've bought into the deliverable, the vision, what you're about to launch to the school community. Stage 6 is launching the website. And you'll notice that Stage 6 is launching. There's still a Stage 7. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But Stage 6 is where you launch the website. And there's a whole bunch of things you need to do from a technical perspective. So you need to submit your new XML sitemap. And obviously, if you're changing your domain, you need to look at redirects and letting, obviously, Google and other search tools know that you've updated your site. And you should also have a really detailed plan to promote your new website to the audience and have a whole communication strategy, internal and external. That's obviously a really big exciting point. And as I often say to everyone, once you launch the website, that, in the scheme of things, that's the easy part. It's Stage 7 and onwards, and that's where the work really comes in. And it's all about analyzing, it's about optimizing, it's about making sure that the website is not at a point in time. It's not a set and forget. And so from an SEO perspective, you're going to want to check and make sure that there's no technical SEO issues, such as your website is definitely getting indexed correctly and appropriately by search engines. From a user experience perspective, you want to check that any redirects are working and keep an eye on your analytics so that time on site and bounce rate is obviously an improving statistic based on maybe previous data you had. And you also want to monitor the performance from things like monthly daily visits, bounce rates, search terms, forms completed, all that different data. So for example, Elcom's got a report for searches performed, where you can report on how many searches have been performed, what keywords they're looking for, what are successful searches and what are failed searches, so you know what content to create. And it's something you just keep doing. You keep optimizing, you keep analyzing, you keep monitoring, you optimize again. It's all about tweaking over and over. If you'd like more insights, we have a website redesign guide complete with a detailed checklist of what you need to effectively redesign your website. And you can actually download that off our website, and we can also send a copy through to you if you want. So that wraps up the main content. We're going to move into the Q&A section, but that hopefully gives you some idea of the best practice tips for building a relevant and engaging website. So we're going to jump into the Q&A, and there's quite a few questions coming through. So please keep asking those questions over there, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible. The first question, how long does a new website take to build from start to launch? That's a great question. It depends on so many different factors. So, everything from who's involved and content, and do you need to rewrite content, and how long the design process takes, and is there any integrations? There's many different factors. A lot of organizations typically work on somewhere between the, 4 weeks to 12 weeks timeframe to go from zero to launch. Some are highly motivated and they do that significantly quicker, and others take longer. But a lot of schools will typically work somewhere between that, 4 to 12 week period over there. And that's sort of a typical time, but again, it can really vary depending on your requirements. Another question, do you power online enrollments through your website? Yes, definitely. So as you would have seen, one of the areas we covered earlier was around online enrollments. So Elcom definitely does that. The Elcom platform makes it really easy for you to create online forms for online enrollments, booking tours, contact forms, whatever it might be. It's all point, click, drag, and drop, and it doesn't require any technical skills whatsoever. So yeah, online enrollments is a really big area. Another question here, can you integrate the student management systems and other systems? Yes, so it did talk about that briefly at the end of the webinar, one of those last few slides. So integration is a real key point, and it's something we do in all our projects with all our clients. Integration's always happening, whether it's student management systems, whether it's financial systems, whether it's accounting systems, whether it's learning management systems, a whole range of different systems. So we do a lot of integration. A lot of it comes down to the user experience, the user journey, and what is the reason for doing the integration. What's the benefit to the user, or what's the benefit to the school? But yeah, we do a lot of integration, and it's a real common trend I'm seeing with a lot more mature schools and mature websites. A couple other quick ones. Who should be the main focus for the website? Yeah, that's a really interesting one. Again, it comes down to your school. Every school is different, so yeah, there's not really a one-size-fits-all answer to that. But definitely the trend is for websites to be more focused around the prospective parents, prospective students, prospective staff, maybe corporates, if there's any partners you work with or anything like that. That's typically where we see a lot of schools focusing their website design and content and user experience and journey. Another question here, kind of similar to the previous one. Do you think the school portal should be part of the website? I guess it comes down to the website audience and who it's focused on. Again, the trend we're seeing is websites are really focused on prospective parents and prospective students and that future school audience, whereas school portals we're typically seeing separate. There might be a link off on the website, but we're seeing a different experience for school portals because you can deliver a much more engaging, personalized experience with parents, teachers, students, staff, where you know them, you know what year group they're in, you know what subjects they're doing, you know what subjects they might teach or what faculty they might be in, what department if it's a staff member. So we definitely see there being a difference between the school portal and the website. Elcom powers websites and school portals, so you may be familiar with Elements by Elcom, our school portal platform, our out-of-the-box school portal platform that can be customized, integrated, and developed for schools. So we definitely see those as two separate. It can be done on the same platform because Elcom does do your website and portal. But from a messaging perspective and a branding perspective, we see school websites focused on that future user, parent, teacher, student, for example, the future user there, or prospective parent, prospective student, and we see the portals more in the existing school community. But the final question, we are looking to update our website now and have it up and running sometime during term 3 or before the start of term 4. Do you think that is feasible? So that's kind of a bit similar to that earlier question as well. Yeah, definitely feasible. As I mentioned before, a lot of schools work on a 4 to 12-week time frame to deliver, depending on their motivation and a whole range of factors. So it's definitely feasible. It is one of those things where you probably want to start sooner rather than later, so there's no mad rush at the end. But definitely something that's feasible from that perspective. So that pretty much wraps up the webinar today. Thank you for the questions. For those we didn't get to, we will definitely come back to them afterwards. I just want to say thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today for the Elcom webinar, Best Practice Tips for Building a Relevant and Engaging Website. Please get in touch if you've got any questions or looking at updating your website. Have a fantastic day, and we look forward to the opportunity of working with you soon. Thank you.